Hello, my name is Anna Bazarne. Welcome to True Self, a path to knowing you on the most deepest, profound, authentic level. The true self that you were born to be, live, and shine in this beautiful world. And the topic of this session is fear and the unknown, which, in my opinion, is one of the most important subjects that prevent people to be who they really are and also to adapt to the challenging times, to move forward to their life purpose, and to really live happily by being themselves, truly, fully themselves. So let's talk about fear. And this topic is very often avoided for many reasons. And one of it is fear of just the word fear. And if we feel fear, we are called cowards. Is that true or not? Let's take a look, dive deeper what fear is, and trust me, fear is the feeling. Fear is the emotion that you're feeling. And all emotions are important. They are messengers and they been given to us for a reason. And for us to understand our emotions, what is this emotion is trying to tell us, and to really, really understand and listen to ourselves on the deepest level will give you such a profound healing that none of the modalities probably could. Understanding and loving yourself, that's where the inner child work really starts and thrives. It's not just connecting with the inner child, but understanding its needs, its emotions, and becoming an adult that can take care of your inner child in a way that your parents and society could never take care of you when you were a little boy or girl. So let's take a look at fear and what does this emotion tells us and teach us. Fear is an ancient survival mechanism rooted in the amygdala. And when we work with amygdala, this is a little gland in your brain, a very, very important one that was just recently discovered in, I believe, 1980s. And when we work with essential oils, we also work with amygdala, the storage of your memories and a huge library of your past experiences. So when we work with essential oils and inhale them, they go directly to amygdala and work with it. So this is a brief introduction into how we actually work with your brain and essential oils, and now the topic of fear. So amygdala is the part of the brain responsible for detecting threats. When it perceives danger, real or imagined, it signals the nervous system to initiate a protective response. And this is not a flaw. Fear is adaptive. It sharpens your focus, increases your heart rate, and prepares the body to act. And that's when a lot of hormones had been thrown into our systems to help us to act and activate a fight or flight response to the real fear. But the modern nervous system hasn't evolved as quickly as our environment. So now we experience fear in response to emotional or symbolic threats like rejection or uncertainty, failure, visibility, change, you name it. And by the end of the month that you work with this topic, I'm sure you will be able to name the ones that are the most relevant to you. And we will be working with those patterns and those fears that are most related to you and your being. Fear was never meant to manage our inbox or our parenting choices. It was designed to protect us from tigers or falling off the cliff when we're standing on the real height. Now we live in a more modern world of invisible tigers, you can say, imagined futures plus ancestral memories and internalized voices. And I will go deeper into each of those. So now let's talk about types of fear, psychological and spiritual. So we have instinctual fear, which is the fear that is responsive to the physical, the real danger that we see that is a real threat to our lives. Then we have the learned fear, which is based on our past experiences, such as trauma in the childhood or um, the very unpleasant experience of the rejection or abandonment. And most of these traumas, and unfortunately, I have to use this word, it's not a pleasant word to hear, but trauma is not something very, very serious, such as real damage or injury to your body. Most of the traumas are actually emotional. And when we're children, we're like sponges and we put our parents on a pedestal. They're like gods to us. And we believe them open-heartedly. And if we receive some words of discouragement, or our parents had to go to work and leave us alone for a little bit, or, for example, there was a well-known um, trait to feed the babies by the clock. So that was a huge traumatic experience for the baby because it fully relies on mother for survival. So every time the baby was hungry and screaming for attention and was not getting an attention from mother or a bottle or a breast to eat, it was perceived as a real threat to the baby's life. So instead of meeting the tiger, not getting a bottle when we were hungry, actually was a huge traumatic experience for us that got recorded in the amygdala and in our unconscious mind, and also get its bits and pieces in our energetic body, in the cellular memory. And later on in life, it not only blocks us from doing certain things because we perceive them as danger to our life unconsciously, but it also can manifest as some diseases. And we will talk about the fear-based behavior in just a moment, but that's exactly what is happening, is you want to do certain things. You are sure you are capable of doing something or becoming somebody or perceive your purpose or knowing that after all, everything is going to be okay. Nothing to be afraid of. And instead of meeting life and treating life with curiosity, we go into the unknown, unexplainable fear of something bad is going to happen. Or no matter what we start or begin or how much we learn or practice, we're going to fail. So that is why it is so important to take this big part of the journey dedicated to fear and focus on doing the full inventory of what is related to you without judgment. This is one and the most important thing of the true self journey, is to enter this space, a safe space. I promise you, this is a safe space for you to be who you are and look at yourself and do an honest inventory of who you are and what is not working for you, and to dig deeper to discover who you are behind all the masks, behind all the fears. Where did they come from? And what are you going to do about it? So let's move on and we'll focus even more on the fear-based behavior. But this is very important to remember. Know yourself, commit to knowing yourself on the deepest level possible, and come to that space dropping all the judgment. Be curious to meet who you really are, really are. Just like that person that you imagine you've met in life who will become your partner, your support, who would want to know you beyond all shells, beyond all what happened to you, that will love you no matter what, and just accept you fully. That's what Maitri is about. The unconditional love and acceptance of yourself. And drop the judgment. Nobody's judging here. And everybody in this sacred space and sacred container love you and accept you for who you are. Now let's move on and talk about conditioned fear, which is inherited beliefs and cultural programming. Okay, now this is really big. And each topic that I mentioned, each type of fear is a topic of the whole separate journey that we will take later. But right now, I need you to understand the vast picture that you at least can categorize where the fears belong to and how they show up in your body, in your system, in your nervous system, and what are these fears are actually yours that based on the events and experiences that happened to you when you were growing up, and which of them don't even belong to you and been taught to you by your parents, by society, by the caretakers, by your friends, and often for a good reason, to protect you. But sometimes it goes way beyond that and and get ingrained so much in you that it actually prevents you from action. So conditioned fear, the inherited beliefs, we really need to look into our family lineage. And many people don't want to go into like ancestral healing, shadow work, even work on fears because they think it's, oh my God, this is again digging the dirty laundry and blaming my parents or my family lineage. No, please, nobody's blaming anyone here. What I need you to do is to pretend that you are a historian that is reading a book of you, but you are a part of your mother and father, your grandparents, your great grandparents, and all the ancestors that go back in time centuries and thousands of years ago. This is where we want to go and take a look at their beliefs and their fears and where these fears um, show up and how they showed up and what were they afraid of. And that can go like even in 20th century, most of our parents had some sort of trauma. We had two world wars. Me being from Russia, we also went through two or three wars between Russia and the European countries and Turkey. Then there was a revolution. Then there was the civil war in Russia. Then there was the Bolsheviks and the communist killing the wealthy people and confiscating their belongings. This is traumatic. This is what my ancestors were afraid of. Then there were repressions and real hunt for certain nations as well, and there was racism and nationalism. So, what was that for you and for your ancestors? So, I'll talk a little bit more about it, but last type of the fear is existential fear, which is fear of death, fear of the unknown, and fear of not belonging. This is definitely something about us being here or not being here. And for a long time, people could not understand death. And our ancestors and many native tribes and in mythology, people try to explain what death and afterlife is, and to believe that there is such thing as afterlife, and all you have here on earth is not it. But still, since industrial revolution, we our spirituality dimmed, and religion twisted and turned most of the world religion twisted and turned our relation to God, to the Creator, and also our perception of what's going to happen to us after death. That's why it's unknown, it's scary, and nobody wants to die. And there's a extra attachment to youth, to the earthly life, and it's understandable. We want answers, we want connection to and to know that we are part of something bigger and something more vast and permanent than our life on Earth. So exploring this subject, what it is for yourself, what it is for your family, what it is for your nationality and where you, or religion that your ancestors, your family, or you practice, looking at this aspect is very important as well. And I want to go back for a second to cultural and ancestral inheritance of fear. Many fears aren't ours. They live in our lineage, especially in families shaped by war, immigration, colonization, or intergenerational trauma. And fear is passed down epigenetically. What does it mean is that it actually has the ability, uh, it is written in your DNA, and this DNA sequence or certain genes that are turned on and off determine your stress level and your reaction to certain stresses. And for example, let me see. Through stress responses coded into the gene expression, and energetically through behavior, through silence and emotional expression or non-expressing any emotions, because sometimes you had to stay quiet in order to survive. You had to not show emotions, not to fall apart from the pain. And this is, again, I talked about it, and this is very important to go into your lineage and see what your ancestors went through, because sometimes the fears that you experience, or inability to speak, a fear of public speaking, a fear to be visible or to be different, is so much ingrained in us, and it's not that much of our own fear, but this came to us from the ancestors that had to stay invisible and quiet in order to stay alive. And I can tell more stories about my lineage, but I'm curious, what will you dig in your history, and how will you explain when did they have to suppress or express the behavior in a certain way? Where did they have to stay silent and invisible? Where they were not allowed certain emotional expression? This is very interesting, and I really invite you to treat this exercise with curiosity. As I said, this particular session is a more broad one that will allow you to do a huge inventory of yourself, of your family, and to understand better what's going on with you, and most importantly, why. And from now on, if you step on the path towards your true self, this will be your favorite questions. Why? What is going on to me, and why? And those are powerful questions. The answers to them hold the key to your freedom, to your happiness, liberation, and building your inner access that you will be fine no matter what. And we will go further with some journal prompts later on and some assignments that I'm going to give you. But what I told you about fear and your lineage, think about it. What fear might I be carrying that is not mine? And this is a powerful one. What would safety have looked like to my grandmother or grandfather? Pick whatever you like more. Because fear is about safety, and it's all about keeping us safe, but also it's very important to understand the exaggerated sense of fear about certain things that had been inherited by us from the lineage. Just think how our ancestors lived compared to how we live now. And I don't know where you are, what your living situation is, but we are so much better than some of our ancestors, and that had to work from early morning till late night. I'm not even talking about slavery. and dealing with enormous pressure, stress, not having access to clean water and food, or medical assistance. When the lifespan was 30 years, we live completely different life. And sometimes our fear of the unknown, for example, or fear of war, or fear of being visible, um, is really, really so expressive because our ancestors lived differently. So ancestral healing is one of my truly favorite subjects, but here we touch it um, on the surface and start to go deeper into your family tree. And if you feel like this, make a family tree and begin to understand uh, where you come from and really differentiate which fears are yours and which fears are not yours. This is one huge step, this separation of mine, not mine, to find the best solution to deal with them. So let's move on. So fear and your nervous system. Fear activates the sympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system, which is a fight, flight, or freeze. If unresolved, it may collapse into the dorsal vagal shutdown that makes us numb and disconnected from ourselves, from our emotions, and from the outside world. We function as mannequins, moving through the world, doing the tasks, but we're not feeling. We cannot access our emotions because it's overwhelming and because simply our nervous system is too overwhelmed. Also, chronic fear reduces neuroplasticity, and we become stuck in repetitive patterns because our brain is trying to protect us from a certain risk. So this is where we will work with essential oils and flower essences to bring ourselves into the state of safety, because it is very crucial to understand what your fear is trying to teach you and show you in terms of potential danger. And the fact that your immune system and your nervous system is simply overwhelmed, stressed out and overwhelmed. And that's why you're stuck in this loop of fear-based response, not because of the constant even trigger, but because your nervous system is stuck in the loop. And it continues to produce certain hormones that make you feel anxiety, make you feel tense, and contribute to such conditions as insomnia. And it's very interesting that hormonally, fear throws adrenaline into our body in order to prepare us for a movement. But if we don't fight or flight, right, which is a movement, adrenaline stays in our body and causes a paralysis, a freeze. That's why sometimes when we're in a panic mode, instead of doing something, we just pause, freeze, and feel completely stuck. It's very interesting to observe, and what is the most important, again, thing is not to judge. Observe, learn to notice such things and such behaviors in you or such symptoms in you, and then find out what's going on. And most importantly, reset yourself out of this stress response and fear-based response. So we're not ignoring or pushing away the fear. We want to know what fear is trying to tell us, but we also want to notice when we are actually not experiencing the source of fear anymore, but our nervous system got stuck in the loop. So those are two different things, and this is very important to remember. So how does fear show up in your body, and how it manifests somatically? Let's talk about this for a moment. Fear doesn't just live in the mind, it imprints on our body and lives in our body. And as we talked about numbness and disconnection, it's not that we don't feel this emotion, we simply don't notice it and we don't process it. So unprocessed emotions get stored in our body and in our cellular memory, and it triggers our nervous system without us even noticing this. So we ignore and we don't feel the fear, but it doesn't mean that it's not present in our mind and in our body. And that's the scariest part. That's why we are working on it and begin with fear before we go deeper into the healing, because this is the foundation that we need to address first. So some of the common physical symptoms of the fear in the body is the tightness in the chest and shallow breathing. And in a different part of the different recording that will be dedicated to somatic practices, we will talk about breathing, and we'll start doing some very powerful exercises to open up your chest, release the diaphragm, and to start breathing fully, because when we don't breathe, we don't our brain is not getting enough oxygen, and also our cells are not getting enough oxygen, and they age and they die, or it contributes to cancer. So one of the simple symptoms, as I said, tight chest and shallow breathing. But that also means that your heart center, your heart, is not fully open. It's like you are caged, and symbolically and energetically that becomes true. Like your heart is not open to relationships and love that we many of us are seeking so much and need so much. But when we're disconnected and numb and stressed and in fear-based response, we don't feel the emotions. We don't feel love towards ourselves or towards others. Now let's move to the jaw. And jaw clenching and teeth grinding and TMJ, temporomandibular disorder, is one of the top diseases or symptoms or syndromes of 20th and 21st century, and me included. Since the childhood was grinding my teeth, it's all about this tightness of hold on no matter what. So noticing that and noticing the muscles, the muscle tension on your cheeks and the tension in the jaw can teach you a lot about how stressed or relaxed you are in this moment. Then another issue is the digestive issues, which is a gut-brain axis, and you probably heard about the vagal nerve and the relationship of our guts, the brains, and the heart. And many of the digestive issues that we try to treat with supplements actually stem from the fear and the fear response in the body. And by addressing the emotional fear, we can really shift and heal our guts and our digestive issues. Then another important symptom and something to check your body for is hypervigilance and chronic tension in shoulders and neck. And see how relaxed or tight you are. And again, this is something that we can address symptomatically. We can go to a chiropractor, massage therapist, and temporarily release it and reset. But then the reason I'm doing it, and the reason this whole true self journey, is to stop being dependent on the healers and other practitioners, and learn to recalibrate and reset yourself in a way that you stop being in the fear-based response and having these fear symptoms in the body, including the tightness in the neck and shoulders. So yes, going to the massage therapist and having a help from another healer is very, very helpful from time to time. But it's very important to understand that you will continue to produce this tightness and tension until you change. and change the stress response and change your emotions and bring more safety into your life. Another symptom is insomnia, and it is highly hormonal based. It's the cortisol, the stress hormone that is produced when we worry and we are afraid, and also the adrenaline, as I briefly mentioned. And I wanted to say that in Chinese medicine, fear is related with kidneys. And we will work on somatic practices related to kidneys, and strengthening our kidneys is always great. And it's not a coincidence that cortisol is produced by adrenal glands that are located right on top of your kidneys. So, and yes, of course, hormonal disruption. Fear equals cortisol, and cortisol triggers the whole stress loop. So one of the things I need to ask you to ask yourself is, where do you hold fear in your body? Just scan for all the areas of tension and tightness in your body. And lower back is another incredible storage of unprocessed emotions. And this big muscles that go along your spine on both sides of your body are great indicators of either you are or not in the fear or stress loop. And what does fear feel like in sensation? Not in story, but in sensation. Can you start paying attention on how you experience fear? Where do you feel it? How do you feel it? Do you tense up, or is it a surge of the hormone through your body like electricity? Where it shows up in your body, and where does it go after you done with this emotion or ignore this emotion? So now I want to talk about very important subject that kind of concludes the whole introduction part, is fear-based behavior and emotional patterns. This is big, and this is where non-judging comes in, because many of your symptoms are treated, either ignored or treated as something that needs to be irradiated and erased, and it's not okay to feel that particular emotion, which is not true. What we are doing here is we're understanding the full range of our emotions, and also the effects of trauma and emotions and emotional response and emotional patterns in us. So let's take a look and be prepared to make notes later or now. You can always pause the video and make notes to not to forget later. So unprocessed fear often drives overthinking and rumination, and all that repetitive thoughts that keep you up at night or keep you in the loop of repeating the same thing again and again and again and again. And that's when you cannot relax. You go to a yoga class or your relaxation techniques and you cannot relax, but that's what it is. It's unprocessed fear. And I know that meditation and yoga had been offered, and even flower essences had been offered as a release to get you out of this overthinking and rumination. And while chestnut in flower essence therapy is well known to stop the rumination and overthinking, but the thing is, to before you start eliminating the emotion, it's very important to ask, what is it trying to tell us? And it's very important to understand that this overthinking and rumination is your protective mechanism, your mental safe seeking. That means that you don't feel safe and you try to find solutions, explanations, and keep thinking and thinking. There maybe there will be an even better solution. Like constantly keeping your mental alertness on the problem rather than just sitting with the problem. Or how often we worry about the future and create the scenarios that that may or may not happen at all. I mean, it's nice to be prepared, right, and take certain precautions, but it's not okay to keep being stuck in the loop of just projecting or imagining what bad things could happen. And this is going again to your own history and see if you can determine where this fear came from, or just understand, oh my God, this is not even mine. This is like from great grandma that was probably, was afraid when the next bomb is gonna fall on Moscow and kill one or more relatives. Things like this are super important to keep the track of. Then control patterns and perfectionism. And this is trying to outrun the chaos. Like you have to be in the constant action and you have to be perfect when things are not perfect. This is all about your safety. And most likely it's the safety, again, like of your ancestors or you as a child. And being safe for a helpless baby is different than a 40-year-old adult. And this is where inner child work is so important. And understanding that sometimes you are so afraid because you were afraid when you were 3 months old. And we're going to work on this. But before we're going to work on this, I want you to start connecting the dots and do a game that I love calling pattern recognition. Just see where things are coming from and what they are trying to tell you. That's why I'm explaining what some terms actually mean. Yeah, perfectionism, everybody are naming it and understanding that it's not a good trait, but do you understand that you're trying to outrun the chaos of your life? That's a different way and much more compassion towards yourself and towards understanding your behavior and emotional responses. People pleasing and phoning is fear of rejection. It's powerful, right? And this is, again, something that goes back to our childhood and how dependent we were on the mood of our parents, our caretakers. We had to be good, we had to be pleasing, not to be punished, beat, to be fed, to be safe. And this is where a lot of grieving and compassion will kick in before you try to just weed out the people pleasing out of yourself. Give yourself a chance to understand why it even formed in you. And rather than trying to just bluntly correct the behavior, we need to address the root cause. What Alicia Woodford, a great healer and my fellow colleague, calls core emotional healing. When we go into where this all began and address it in the root. Avoidance and procrastination are fear of failure and fear of visibility. So instead of putting a label of, oh, I procrastinate, think about it as the fear of visibility and why. Why wasn't it safe for you as a child to be visible? Were you punished for being visible? In many families, kids should not be seen or heard. Or maybe it was in school, or maybe it was for same thing happened to your ancestors. When it was not safe to tell the truth and to be seen and to be different and to express yourself, zip it up to be safe. So now you have something called procrastination. So instead of pushing yourself and trying to change your behavior forcefully, try to be gentle and go again to the core of not procrastination, but fear of visibility. Not avoidance, but fear of failure. And one last very important issue is disembodiment. It's dissociation, numbness, and not feeling. And it affects us a lot, from the way we connect emotionally to other people, to the way we talk, express love or not express love, our sensuality, our sexuality, and ability to be vulnerable with our partners, with our friends, with ourselves, with anybody. It affects communication as well, and I guess it contributes a lot to isolation and also the feeling of non-belonging, because you just simply cannot connect with others on the deepest and most profound level. Now I briefly want to touch upon where oh, one last thing. This is where I want you to start thinking. Why are you not ready to manifest what you want to do, whom you want to be? Because the body is still feeling the danger. This is a very powerful prompt for you to reflect on, write about, feel about it. And each of these fear-based behaviors that I just named is a subject for its own month of work. And I want you to relax into the process and don't rush it. And we start with the broader picture to pinpoint the most typical traits for you. And that's why I created the questionnaire, when I give you a lot of questions, but then we pick 5 to 7 uh, answers that are the most critical to address at this stage. Because when I blend for the flower essences for a specific theme, we usually use 5 to 7 flowers. So instead of trying to address everything that you found, I will give you answers to gently but powerfully start working on what's typical for you, your family lineage, your childhood, and your life as adult, and the things that push you for pull you forward or freeze you in this inaction and inability to face uncertainty, to pivot, to change, and to greet the unknown with curiosity rather than paralyzing fear. So now let's briefly talk about the subtle body, fear, and the energetic system. Fear often sits in the root chakra, which is responsible for safety. Solar plexus, your personal power, and the heart, that's responsible for vulnerability. Chronic fear can block intuition, creativity, and your self-trust. Clearing fear doesn't mean eliminating it. It means integrating its message and restoring your inner safety. And that's what we'll be working on. And this is where I will bring the essential oils, the flower essences, and we'll do powerful practices to understand the message, understand yourself, and restore your inner safety. And it will be very important for you to feel that you're safe, you're not alone, you can move, and you can choose. So this concludes my introduction part, and I hope I sparkled your curiosity to find more about yourself and about fear. And next step will be for you to complete the questionnaire and find out this basic fear formula that you will be working on for a month. If you want to work more than that, you can. But for this true self journey, we give it at least a month for your body and your physical body and your energetic and emotional body to be able to shift and find your inner balance and your inner peace and safety in a way, remember the journal prompt, what does safety look like for your grandma, but also what is safety for you? Because very often your requirements to feel safe really determine the level of the fear and anxiety. And acknowledging it and building your life, your work, the space that you live in based on your needs for safety is important. So thank you for being with me here today. Look into the questions. There will be two sets of questions. One set of questions determine the flower essences in your formula. The other set of questions are your exercises and journal prompts for you to do the pattern recognition and to begin meeting with yourself on the deepest and most profound levels. And a different recording will be with the somatic practices that will help you to move the energy in the body, move the blockages away, emotional blockages, and we will work with breath, we will work with acupressure. Those are special points on your body related to the meridians. So we will implement that in the duration of a month, and let's see where you're going to be in 30 days. My name is Anna Bazarna. I'm founder and formulator in Maitri Verde. I'm so happy that you're here, and I'm wishing you best of luck in your healing journey. Don't hesitate to contact me with any questions, suggestions, or I love to hear your shares too. So don't be a stranger. My email is anna@maitriverde.com, and you can find more videos, more offerings, and more product at maitriverde.com. Thank you, and until next time.